Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Subconscious Mind and Its Illuminating Light. An interpretation by Janet Young. This audio is brought to you by You Are Creators, Inc. and is free to use and download. The mind is the master over every kind of fortune. A great mind becomes a great fortune. Seneca. Forward. Awakening the subconscious powers releases masterful forces. The subconscious region of the mind is capable of independent action. The universe is governed by law. The universe of being is subject to law. The laws must be followed. The subjective powers respond to suggestion. Mankind is divinely endowed with dominion, and reason must control. These spiritual powers are given to manifest God on earth and for use. To obtain the highest results, the objective and subjective minds must act in harmony and for good. Faith in and the realization that we have these powers and clear thought directed by the willpower persistently maintained demonstrates ideals and proves the revelation. Mind light. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over all the earth." So God created man in his own image and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. The Bible, Genesis. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. The Bible, St. Matthew. Jesus answered them, "Is it not written in your law, I said, ye are gods?" The Bible, St. John. The manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal severally as he will. The Bible, Corinthians. A great and sacred Spirit talks indeed within us, but cleaves to its divine original. Seneca. The mind is magnetic and draws to itself whatever it most earnestly determines. To distinguish its different aspects, that part of the mind in daily use has been termed the objective, and the region that does the deep thinking the subjective mind. The subjective has been proved to be capable of independent action. The earth is circled with invisible etheric magnetic currents, an intermediary in transmitting energy, proved in wireless. The ether is a divine agent for the use of mankind, to sustain life and to utilize its properties for the betterment of life. The mind, through intelligent concentration, may connect thought with these limitless etheric currents or spiritual forces belting and encircling space. These forces are governed by the law that demand creates supply. To demonstrate mind power, knowledge of the law is essential. We must feel our identity with divine powers through the indwelling Spirit. Faith must be maintained. Every thought is a force. Thought connects with these ether vibrations and attracts results according to the quality of the thought sent out. Concentration upon ideals, reiteration that power is inherent, only awaiting recognition, understanding that faith controls these forces or infinite power manifesting in mankind and the higher spiritual law, will establish the answer according to the intensity and activity of the will of the seeker. We know that these etheric currents permeate all space and all life and substance, and that by means of these waves of energy encircling and belting the earth, vibrations and impressions are conveyed to the mind responding to the direction of the thought and will intelligently directed. Jesus taught the knowledge of these spiritual forces and authorized their use. Mind light may command a continuous field of intelligence and activity. The powers of the subconscious or subjective mind or soul are now being more generally understood. Its means of information must be of divine origin, as it can be accounted for and explained in no other way. Through its agency, divine power is communicated by enabling the mind faculties to advance in the comprehension of modes of energy determined by the nature and direction of the will. God created man in his own image. Image is a counterpart. The Spirit was breathed into man by God himself when we became living souls and were given dominion over things. So we have divine authority for its command and control, and it becomes our privilege to study the laws and demonstrate the powers of the subconscious activities. Practical results are now demanded, and its principles apply to all things for use and the betterment of life. Practical results may be evolved from our ever-increasing divinely created powers, which our intellect will more and more enable us to manifest in accomplishment for good and the betterment of life for the many. The foundation of all religion is the same, whether we consider mankind as a reflection of God or a partaker of the attributes of divinity, or mankind created in God's own image or counterpart. Knowledge and understanding of the subconscious mind powers bring God nearer to mankind by demonstrating our God-given powers. All life is an advance, each receptive mind forwarding the thoughts that have been thought before, broadening the mind and proclaiming progress. Illuminating light comes from the divine spheres of higher intelligence. Divine orders of beings exist who guard, guide, and overwatch mankind, respond to entreaty and trust, and reveal the mysteries of God by spreading the knowledge of Him to all seekers. Through thought communion apprehended by the intellect, concentrated thought attracts the assistance of these helpers and forces through the energy of mental action, which qualifies self-realizing spiritual power, imparting wisdom and understanding through prayer and demand, that is, claiming by right of our divine powers the fulfillment of the promises that if we ask and seek, we shall receive and find. The electric ether is a medium or agent and transmits energy, and individuals may control and use this vibrant force. The objective mind plans, and the subjective brings ideas to the surface of thought to evolve the plans into action. The objective mind desires things, and the subjective unfolds thoughts to realize them. By these upward steps, advance is made along the way of mind privileges to will and demonstrate ideas, mental images, and plans. One may think while they act, and act while they think. Investigation discovers new phases of knowledge and discerns more subtle expressions of intellectual capacities. To whatever the mind is most persistently directed, will it respond in a reflex action of results corresponding to directed will and thought. Deep feeling arouses the emotions and is a mode of energy. Advancing knowledge and understanding discerns more subtle elements of these energies as the perceptions become keener. Awakened latent energies may determine health and promote material conditions, and are the magicians who shall cause the daily life to blossom into realities. Early writers taught that the mind may condition the ethereal substance of which electricity is a constituent, converting man into an apparatus of enormous power and explaining the accomplishment of the seemingly impossible. This admits of no analysis. The unknown quantity is the logos, or word. Thoughts will offer their services if ideas and plans are projected, that is, pictured in thought, and given attention showing wisdom more than human. We must have practical effects, and we have biblical authority for asserting that the higher intelligences acting under God respond to demand. The Holy Spirit, or soul, was breathed into man by God Himself when we became living beings. Along the way shines the light. The more intense the thought, the greater the power of its vibrative effect to attract what we persistently seek. We are active centers for the magnetic element of concentrated thought to manifest the law of attraction. To obtain its help, dwell constantly upon its reality. Opportunities will come as if they were ordered, and you will see forming about you the conditions which you desire. The subconscious region seems to represent the supply center, the objective, the demand center of the universe of being. We must form a mental or mind picture of our ideals and hold it continually in thought until it manifests in reality. The electric ether transmits energy, and individuals may use this vibrant force. There is a counterpart in the invisible corresponding to ideals that may be transformed into realities in the visible world. The mind must be prepared to expect and receive impressions. A hierarchy of divine orders of beings communicate intelligence through thought, communion of saints. By their ministry, blessings prolific in abundance descend, an ordained bond of union between the seen and the unseen. Meditation preceding concentration may center the mind upon the nature and direction of the thought. Harmonious thought must prevail and preside, and all contrary conditions banished and avoided. Joy is a constructive element and awaits recognition. Whatever thought is sent out returns in like quality in result, and draws in force in proportion to projected propelling vibrations. The ether governs organic life and transmits and receives sensory impressions, directed by the consciousness. It was known to the ancient philosophers as well as modern scientists that the ether is the source of all energy and of the nature of electricity. Under the direction of the will, which is also composed of subtle and varying aspects, it may be directed to wonderful results. The ether seems to supply the force through which the spiritual manifests in the material. Science has now demonstrated that etheric radiations accompany the exercise of the highest faculties of the soul. These etheric radiations entirely pervade all the elements of this universe and is the agent in the production of all phenomena. This etheric force gives energy and power to act. This etheric fluid is diffused throughout the universe, acting upon the body and penetrating even the nervous system. I believe it to be the spirit or breath breathed into us by God Himself when we became living souls. In the human body, it manifests properties analogous to those of the magnet. There is a continuous exchange of forces going on between the living organism and its etheric surroundings. Through the activity of this subtle fluidic element, intellectual conceptions are transmitted. Life is directed by the radiation of this force. Etheric groupings peculiar to each living organism have an influence upon the vibrations of the invisible ether, thus explaining the process of vibratory effects and activities and their method of action independent of the conscious mind through the subconscious self-realizing powers. A divine world plan to guide the affairs of life. We know the subconscious or spiritual mind has powers of action independent of the conscious mind. The subconscious or spiritual forces impart knowledge and wisdom to direct it to the earnest seeker. This superior reason, this self-realizing consciousness is God in ourselves, a guide in the affairs of life. Happiness and the beautiful things of this world are intended for use, and all right methods should be studied and adopted to attract them. Thinking creates ideas, directing the faculties of the mind at will. The vibratory ether transmits the thought. It interpenetrates the plane or sphere corresponding to the idea sent out, and answering perceptions are communicated. This appears to be the method of the mind process. Specific instructions given the subjective mind that in conscious contemplation does the deep thinking, brings the information before the objective mind or that part of the mind in general use. Train and use these subjective powers, the divine medium through which ideas may be received. The celestial energy of the mind attracts power through which we conquer, roused into activity by autosuggestion, which is mental conversation with the subconscious, and conveys instructions and requests. The subconscious generates and communicates answering replies. Intense feeling awakens latent faculties. Knowledge of the laws governing the subjective powers may control events. Persistency in seeking for opportunities creates them. The infinite communicates with the finite through the spirit or soul, manifesting in mankind as the subconscious region of the mind. Spiritual gifts given to every man severally as he will. Occupying the mind with high ideals attracts perceptions from higher realms. The divine principle realizing in mind imagery. Faith imparts power. The Holy Spirit is an amulet always about us. The reward is manifest. The soul or subconscious is God in ourselves. Health and strength of body and mind may be augmented by keeping in mind this thought. Things are as real as you make them. The function of the mind is to guide the will. Its laws may be mastered to guide the daily life. Contemplation produces a radiation of energy to the consciousness. To ask or demand, claiming by right of divine authority through the promises, is to receive force and wisdom. Possibilities and miracles are the same, a means to demonstrate power. To cultivate repose and calm thought conserves energy. The great world religions show an identity of essence. Saints make real the unseen world. Force, powerful as electricity, resides in the individual will. As we advance along the path of self-knowledge, the more the serene mind serves the rightly directed will. The resources and depths of the subconscious are unfathomable and unlimited. It is the dominion of free will and must be controlled by reason. Knowledge of its governing laws is essential. Persistency in autosuggestion, reiteration of faith, and acknowledgement of its powers and self-mastery are necessary to control and command its services. With added perceptions, higher radiations are presented and discerned. Knowledge follows demand, that is, by claiming the fulfillment of the promises that if we ask and seek, we shall receive and find thought and will establishing power. The word necessities has expanded. The objective mind observes and reasons upon plans and ideals, then by suggestions to the subjective receives intuitions and answers of illuminating thought. The subconscious communicates with unseen powers. By concentration and reiteration of faith, continuous power may be realized. Autosuggestion is the great psychological miracle. The inspiring suggestion blesses him that gives as well as takes. The infinite consciousness should govern every action of life. Concentrate upon its supply. The infinite consciousness, one of the many aspects or reflections of the infinite, manifest in mankind as the subconscious mind or soul, in the soul or Holy Spirit manifesting in a more subtle or spiritual form, and manifesting in the ether, permeating all things as the all-pervading transmitter of energy, enabling the mind faculties through its agency to externalize ideas and determine certainties. By keeping in mind that we have these powers with wisdom to direct them, and claiming of the omnipotent within the fulfillment of the promises, we shall receive that for which we ask, and find that for which we seek. To the faithful will the signs be manifest. With revealing light will come accomplishing power, the searchlight of divine rays illuminating the great and sacred spirit within us, which comes from the eternal abodes in meridian splendor and conquers